This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Now, they're the innocent victims caught in the crossfire in Afghanistan. Everyday families try to get on with their lives, but the impact of the bombings and fighting between government troops and a resurgent Taliban is taking its toll. Al Jazeera's Mohammed reports from Kandahar's Central Hospital in southern Afghanistan.
Ordinary Afghans showing their anger at the violence that racks their country. Anger that can push a civilian to violence himself. I'm here in the Central Hospital of Kandahar, and I'm going to present a case that by all normal standards is unique and touching. But here in Afghanistan, it's a typical daily occurrence. And I really don't know whether to start with the door on my right or the one on my left. On the left lies a woman in extreme pain. She was shot and badly wounded by gunfire from a NATO convoy.
We were trying to leave the hospital. We saw a foreigner's car passing and we thought it was the last one in a convoy. But as soon as we neared the exit, they fired at us. I was shouting. I got hit.
The shooting took place as she was just finishing a hospital visit to another patient, her husband. Unaware that his wife is now lying in the next room, he is struggling to recover from his injuries sustained in a bomb attack blamed on Taliban just 1 week earlier. His relatives haven't told him about his wife. We moved through the night to see what happened to their little ones, who were left to fend for themselves in one of Kandahar's poorest neighborhoods. The children and the grandchildren emerged from this moth-eaten structure. With their parents lying in hospital beds, these children face disease and hunger alone. Mohammed, Al Jazeera, Kandahar, southern Afghanistan.
The French President Nicolas Sarkozy has found himself in trouble at home after he offered to send more troops to Afghanistan during a speech to the British Parliament. French politicians are furious at his decision to make the announcement in London and not in Paris. It's Sarkozy's first state visit to Britain. Tim Friend has this report.
A tribute to a previous French leader. General de Gaulle's memorial in London was Mr. Sarkozy's first port of call. But like his wartime predecessor, the current French president is also grappling with armed conflict, this time in Afghanistan. President Sarkozy's announcement of extra troops for Afghanistan has already landed him in trouble back home, where the opposition opposes such a move. They're furious that he chose the British Parliament to make his announcement, and they're demanding a full debate in Paris. He was confronted with the criticism at a press conference with the British Prime Minister, but the two leaders were defiant.
The
message sent to the world and to terrorists, namely that we might fail in Afghanistan, would be catastrophic. And I hope that the leaders of the French opposition share this view.
And I'm very grateful that President Sarkozy has made the offer that he has, but equally at the same time, all countries have a responsibility to burden sharing, and that's why at the NATO summit in the next few days we'll be discussing how other countries can also play their part in making sure that we have both the resources in manpower and in equipment in Afghanistan in the years to come.
Mr. Sarkozy also had harsh words for Syria, accused of meddling in Lebanese affairs. He told Damascus, "Leave Lebanon alone."
The spokesman for the Egyptian Foreign Ministry said that Egypt's decision not to participate in the summit is not due to United States pressure.
Any suggestion or hint that Egypt's decision not to participate in an Arab summit or any given meeting being influenced by U.S. pressure is a matter that I completely detest. I refuse to even go into it because it expresses a lack of comprehension of the Egyptian mentality or psychology and the decision makers in Egypt. Egypt's decision was attached to itself based on what we have talked about for months. Those who are abreast of the Egyptian position could have predicted weeks ago, or even since the crisis began, that this would be a stance of Egypt in regards to this summit.
أنه سوف يكون الموقف المصري من القمة على النحو الذي نحن بصدده الآن.
Most Arab leaders are missing from the Arab summit in Damascus, including the Sultan of Oman, the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, the Iraqi President Jalal Talabani, and Iraqi Prime Minister Nour al-Maliki. Lebanon is completely absent from the summit.
Some are present at the Arab summit in Damascus, but several leaders, which have played and continue to play a big role in determining the fate of the Arab nation, are missing. The King of Saudi Arabia, King Abdullah bin Abdel Aziz, will not attend the summit. The Arab League Saudi representative will attend on his behalf. It is still unknown who will represent King Abdullah II of Jordan at the summit. Also not attending are King Mohammed VI of Morocco, the King of Bahrain, Hamad bin Isa al Khalifa, and Sultan Qaboos bin Said of Oman. The Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak will not attend and will be represented by the Minister of Parliament and Legal Affairs, Mofid Shihab. The Iraqi President Jalal Talabani will not attend. It is also anticipated that Prime Minister Nour al-Maliki will not attend either because of the exceptional situation in Iraq. Lebanon will be completely absent while its crisis is at the heart of the summit discussions. The summit will also discuss peace in the Middle East, Iraq, and Darfur.
Joining us from Damascus is Arabiya correspondent Saad Silawi. Saad, it was expected that the Arab foreign ministers would continue their meeting in the afternoon. Have these meetings begun?
Yes, they have been going on for more than 1 hour and a half. The results of these meetings will be announced in a joint press conference with Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim and Amir Moussa, the Arab League Secretary General. The current topic of discussion is on the relations between the Arabs. The other topic is the Arab initiative to resolve the crisis in Lebanon. It looks like the foreign ministers will present their decision on the issue of Lebanon at the summit.
What are the most heated discussions between the Arab foreign ministers?
Arab-Arab relations. In all honesty, and as recognized by the simple Arab citizen, Arab-Arab relations are probably going through their worst period and conditions. There is a discussion about Syrian-Lebanese relations, and there will definitely be one on the Syrian-Saudi relations, and then with Egypt and Jordan. There is a series of discussions about these relations that even the simple Arab citizen recognizes as not being in the best condition. The biggest concern, according to observers and experts, is that this summit might be establishing a split between two camps leading to polarization. This is a serious concern for people and observers of the Arab summit.
Saad Silawi, Al-Arabiya correspondent in Damascus, thank you.
Palestinians believe that holding the Arab League summit is an important step in supporting the Palestinian plight because it will focus on it.
Palestinians have high hopes for the Arab League summit in Damascus because it is being held under special and critical conditions pertaining to the Arab nation and its central issue being the Palestinian plight. Palestinian officials hope that they will get more political and financial support.
The Arab Summit is an important opportunity for Arab leaders to hold their annual meeting and discuss important issues, especially the Palestinian plight. We will ask that our honorable brothers renew their financial and political support to the Palestinian plight as they have done in the past.
أما على صعيد قيادي وفصائلي فإن التطلعات إلى القمة العربية في دمشق.
Arab governments and factions have high hopes that the Arab summit in Damascus will result in new Arab positions and will produce a new Arab project that has an Arab consensus to confront the occupation's plans and which addresses failed initiatives. They also hope that the Arab leaders will take influential positions to break the siege on Gaza and end the Israeli occupation of Arab lands.
As Palestinians, we hope that Arab leaders at the summit will make practical decisions that will completely end the siege against our Palestinian people and stop the unjust Israeli aggression. We also hope that Palestinians' rights are respected and that the international community intervenes to achieve justice for the Palestinian plight.
Palestinian masses called for Arab unity and said that their main concern is resisting colonization and occupation. Holding the Arab League summit in Damascus reflects the significance of Damascus, which symbolizes Arab steadfastness, resistance, and commitment to all Arab rights.
First of all, we want the Arab leaders to unite and take one position. We also want them to stand up to America.
The location of the summit, Damascus, is very important. If the Arab leaders make a decision in Syria, it will have important implications. We hope that they will succeed.
The Palestinians, like the rest of their Arab brothers, realize that holding the Arab summit in Damascus has great political implications. Palestinian leaders hope that this summit will result in a new Arab initiative.
يوسف المحمود التلفزيون العربي السوري فلسطين المحتلة.
Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has hinted at the possibility of secret talks with Syria. Addressing the Foreign Press Corps in Jerusalem last night, Olmert said, quote, "I have indeed said that I am prepared to make peace with Syria. I hope that the Syrians are prepared to make peace with Israel and that circumstances will allow us to sit together. That does not mean," the Prime Minister stressed, "that you, the media, have to see us." Olmert's statement is regarded as a significant change in the approach of the Prime Minister, who until a few weeks ago ruled out the possibility of peace talks with Damascus. As far as the Palestinian track is concerned, Olmert made it clear that he has no intention of entering into any kind of dialogue with Hamas and appeared to be retreating from his stated goal of reaching a peace agreement with PA President Mahmoud Abbas by the end of 2008.
We are not talking with Hamas, and we are not going to compromise with someone that is consistently shooting rockets on the heads of Israelis. We will deal with Hamas in other ways, and these ways will be very painful. One thing is obvious. We want to move on with the peace process. I hope that the Palestinians want to move on with the peace process. I regret that sometimes they choose to delay or to freeze the negotiations between us due to some events which take place in the battle against terror that we have to conduct in order to protect the lives of Israelis living in the south part of the country. But as far as we are concerned, we are prepared to talk day and night, every day, as we do, without any delays, precisely in order to achieve peace as soon as possible.
Defense Minister Ehud Barak last night hosted PA Prime Minister Salam Fayyad at Barak's home in Tel Aviv. The two discussed the implementation of several Israeli goodwill gestures on the West Bank designed to boost Fatah in its ongoing struggle against Hamas. According to defense officials, both Israel and the PA government in Ramallah are concerned that Hamas will take over the West Bank not just by the force of arms, but also in elections. Barak briefed Fayyad on a string of gestures, including the deployment in Jenin of 600 Palestinian security officers now in training in Jordan. Barak also presented other options, including opening a VIP lane at West Bank checkpoints and exempting Palestinian businessmen with a security clearance from inspections at those checkpoints. Barak told reporters that despite international pressure, he had no intention of risking Israeli lives by the mass dismantling of roadblocks across the West Bank. That pressure is expected to increase with the arrival in Israel on Saturday night of U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice.
The two kidnapped Palestinians, Amr Taha and Ali Abdelhamid, who are being held by the Abbas Fayyad Security Authority, confirmed that the killing of the two Zionist soldiers 3 months ago was nothing but self-defense. Taha and Abdelhamid have been sentenced to 15 years in prison by the Abbas Fayyad Authority in the West Bank. Meanwhile, a Zionist source warned of a third intifada or uprising that could erupt in the occupied West Bank.
The Palestinian security agencies in the occupied West Bank are complementing the role of the Zionist occupation there. This news comes as the occupation forces continue to carry out semi-daily raids, sweepings, killings and kidnappings against the residents of the West Bank in an attempt to crack down on the Palestinian resistance as demanded by the United States-backed Zionist entity. After they were accused by the occupation of killing two Zionists in the occupied city of Hebron, Amr Taha and Ali Abdelhamid were kidnapped and sentenced to 15 years in prison by the Abbas Fayyad Security Authority in the West Bank. Taha and Abdelhamid said that the killing of the two soldiers 3 months ago was in self-defense after the soldiers had opened fire on them.
I am being held here because I defended myself. This is why I'm sitting here in this cell.
The two soldiers stopped us and then attacked us. They had 2 automatic machine guns and we had 2 handguns.
According to the Zionist TV Channel 10, there appears to be an awakening among the Hamas movement in the West Bank, which has caused panic inside the Abbas Fayyad security institution. The source added that the occupation forces will cooperate with the Abbas Fayyad Authority in order to restrain the Hamas awakening movement and prevent the eruption of a third intifada.
We are seeking answers to many questions. How prepared is the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank? Will they be able to maintain control in the West Bank, especially as the Hamas awakening continues to gain momentum? This is a big test facing the Palestinian Authority, and the next few days will tell us how much control they really have.
The following questions are being addressed to the Abbas Fayyad Authority. What will your fate be when you are judged before the people? How will you respond to the charges of betrayal and collaboration with the Zionist enemy?
His Majesty the King has reiterated Jordan's support to the Palestinian National Authority in its negotiations with Israel, particularly on final status issues. During a meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas here in Amman today, His Majesty said it's important to create the environment that will allow the discussion of final status issues and the establishment of an independent Palestinian state. The King stressed the need to stop unilateral actions and the imposition of new facts on the ground, particularly the expansion of Israeli settlements. The talks also touched on the Arab summit, which will start in Damascus on Saturday. President Abbas thanked His Majesty for his continued efforts to push the peace process forward and for the support provided by Jordan to the Palestinian Authority and people. In a press statement issued after the talks, the Palestinian president rejected the idea of changing or amending the Arab Peace Initiative and urged Israel to accept it as it is. On final status issues with Israel, he said the negotiations are ongoing, but that no agreements have been reached so far. In other news, Iraqi security forces have continued a third day of a push to clamp down on insurgent activities across southern Iraq. Followers of Shiite cleric Muqtada Sadr resisted the government crackdown as authorities imposed curfews in an effort to halt the spread of violence. Gunmen deployed in the southern city of Basra carrying different kinds of weapons in a show of force in the city. They stormed an Iraqi army base. Authorities imposed curfews on other Iraqi towns to halt the spread of the violence. But fierce clashes erupted in a predominantly Shiite neighborhood of northern Baghdad. Masked gunmen from Sadr's Mahdi army militia took position in a Shaba neighborhood wielding automatic rifles and grenade launchers as thousands of supporters of Sadr marched to protest against a 3-day-old crackdown. On the other hand, many people were killed or wounded by a U.S. airstrike supporting Iraqi forces battling insurgents in Hilla, south of Baghdad. More than 130 people have been killed and hundreds wounded since the government launched a major military operation in the southern city of Basra on Tuesday. And in Dayton, Ohio, in the United States, U.S. President George W. Bush has praised Iraqi Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki for launching a tough battle against militia fighters and criminals in Basra. He cited the operation as evidence that Baghdad is taking advantage of security gains by U.S. forces. The remarks at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force were one of a series of public addresses which he has delivered in defense of the 5-year-old war, ahead of congressional testimony and administration decision next month on the way forward in Iraq after last year's surge, despite public pressure to bring more troops home. President Bush said any decision would depend on recommendations from commanders on the ground. He warned that any gains from the surge could easily disappear if Iraq was not ready to assume more control.
This offensive builds on the security gains of the surge and demonstrates to the Iraqi people that their government is committed to protecting them. There is a strong commitment by the central government of Iraq to say that no one is above the law. This operation is going to take some time to complete. And the enemy, will try to fill the TV screens with violence. But the ultimate result will be this. Terrorists and extremists in Iraq will know they have no place in a free and democratic society.
U.S. Deputy Secretary of State John Negroponte has rejected suggestions that the United States was trying to dictate anti-terrorism policy to Pakistan's new government. Mr. Negroponte made the comments after he and U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Richard Boucher had talks with Pakistan's Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani, who assured them of Pakistan's resolve to tackle terrorism. Leaders of the new coalition government have recently spoken of the need for talks with militants based in remote mountains of the Afghan border, which has apparently rang alarm bells in Washington and raised the prospect of Pakistani support ebbing. In a press conference, diplomat Negroponte said that he had encountered no doubts about the threat of militants posed.
The common ground that I think we all have in discussing the issue of how to deal with violent extremism in this country or elsewhere where it occurs in the world is that it calls for a multifaceted approach. There is no single solution. Security measures obviously are necessary when one is talking about dealing with irreconcilable elements who want to destroy our very way of life.
As part of his Mid-East tour, U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney has met with Palestinian Authority Chief Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah. This meeting came after Cheney met with Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert in Al-Quds, Jerusalem. Cheney has assured Israel that his administration is totally committed to Israel's security. Our correspondent Saria Khalili has the details.
Following his visit to Israel, U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney has met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and West Bank Prime Minister Salam Fayyad in Ramallah in an attempt to resume talks between Israel and the Palestinian Authority. Cheney, who ensured the Israelis of the United States' commitment to Israel's security, describing it as unshakable, was not interested to mention the Palestinian daily suffering caused by the Israeli air attacks on Gaza and the restriction of movement due to over 700 checkpoints bang.
Terror and rockets do not merely kill innocent civilians, they also kill the legitimate hopes and aspirations of the Palestinian people. And the extremists who have stood in the way of a settlement have only caused further grief and suffering for the Palestinian and Israeli peoples.
During the joint press conference, Abbas called on the U.S. to convince Israel to stop the settlement activity and the daily attacks in the Palestinian territories in order to give a chance for talks.
We would like to thank the United States for the $150 million aid, and we hope the U.S. will attend the coming peace conference in Moscow, as well as other economical conferences in Bethlehem, London, and Berlin.
Cheney's recent statements about Israel's security is seen by the Hamas movement, the winner of 2006 Palestinian parliamentary elections, as another evidence of the total U.S. bias to Israel.
Dick Cheney announced his visit to the area. He wants to support just only the Syrian occupation security, and there is no talks about the Palestinian security and the borders and the siege and embargo and the collective punishment and the settlements. So we and Hamas said that this is just only to support the Syrian Occupation Commission and aggression against the Palestinians.
The U.S. Vice President's visit is part of a U.S. diplomatic flurry before Bush returns here in May for the 60th anniversary of the founding of Israel. Sari Al-Khalili, Press TV, Ramallah.
أظهرت الإحصاءات الأخيرة الصادرة عن المكتب الوطني البريطاني للإحصاء.
According to a recent consensus by the British Office for National Statistics, Mohammed is the second most popular name in Britain. The Prophet's name, Mohammed, peace and prayers be upon him, will likely rise to first place this year.
Among these children, you will find one whose name is Mohammed. It's a fact and not an exaggeration. Next to Jack, the name Mohammed has become the most popular and preferred name for newborn boys in Britain. According to the Office for National Statistics in Britain, the official registrar of names shows an unprecedented increase in the number of newborn boys given the name Mohammed. Last year's figures showed the total number of British children named after the Prophet Mohammed stands at 6,350 babies. In addition, the probability of someone named Mohammed by his parents is higher than other names.
One of the reasons the newborn boys are named after the Prophet Muhammad, peace and prayers be upon him, is a way to preserve the Islamic identity and counter other Western names, sometimes used by Muslim families in Britain.
Some believe the new study by the British Census Bureau is carrying with it a message to the West to respect and honor all messengers and prophets.
The Western society doesn't only criticize the Honorable Prophet, peace and prayers be upon him, but also criticize Jesus as well. By naming our children Muhammad and following the path of the Honorable Prophet, peace and prayers be upon him, the Western society will back down and understand who Muhammad is.
The study listed 14 different spellings of Muhammad, including Muhammad with a U and Muhammad with an O. Despite the different spellings and pronunciations of Muhammad, the Prophet's name is increasingly gaining popularity, which will likely put it in first place this year. Meanwhile, the British we interviewed on the streets of London expressed a positive reaction to the finding of the Census Bureau.
كاميرا العالم لمست في الشريحة التي التقطها في الشارع البريطاني ترحيبا بهذه النتائج.
My name is John, which is also a popular name. I don't have any problem with Mohammed being the most popular name in Britain. This is an indication that people from other parts of the world are living with us in Britain.
Popular in Britain. Delighted.
I'm very delighted. In my opinion, Britain is a multicultural society. The popularity of non-traditional English names makes me very happy. It is part of free expression to say what we like.
Amidst the growing efforts by the West to defame the great prophet, this study shows the high level of respect and love expressed by British Muslims toward their prophet and his noble name Mohammed. Peace and prayers be upon him. Azza Ziftawi, Al-Alam, London.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you. This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. programs which connect you to the world.